Well, we mentioned, KubeCon, VMware Explorer, which was last week. Maybe we'll talk about that as well in a
Hmm.
episode soon. And, also our friend, the Tanzu application service based on Cloud Foundry. But I don't think we've actually dug into a little bit of checking in on the Cloud Foundry community in a while. And I was digging through the exciting stuff from KubeCon over there in Detroit, or as some like to say, Detroit, which is fun. And then I realized there was a Cloud Foundry Day there, which you had commented on a little bit here and there, Nick. And so I thought
Hmm.
we should have you back on for the second or third. I don't know. I've lost track time. To just like, it's very open ended. What I'm going to call, what's the vibe at Cloud Foundry Day? What's going on over there? What are people working on? Like just what's happening? What's up with that community?
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. So this is like obviously the, I guess, first in-person event since, the COVID happened. I was actually at the last in-person event. I think that was in Philadelphia in 2019 as well. So it was good to kind of reconnect with everyone again. But this is the first time as doing this as working for VMware before I was a customer of, using Cloud Foundry. Um, so that was pretty cool to kind of, see that transition. But it was definitely a kind of a tight knit vibe where it was a single track, like single room. I guess, what do we call them? It was a day zero event at KubeCon, but it was on the second day. So I guess, the math is a little confusing there, but another day zero event of many where, we can kind of get a very kind of nice focus and just really talk Cloud Foundry all day. There's a lot of talks that we can kind of go into, you know, giving the different projects that the community is working on. Kind of the two big themes are Cloud Foundry Karifi and the Paketo build packs as well. Those are kind of the two, you know, let's say next evolution or evolving evolution of Cloud Foundry and that community. And it was just really nice to see everyone in person, and then kind of the single room, single track view is pretty nice because you can kind of get all the content and you didn't have to worry about shuffling to different rooms or, oh, am I going to make it to that type of thing. So I really enjoyed that. You kind of, got set up and were able to kind of take it all in and not have to worry about, the logistics of traveling to different rooms and that nature. So,
I always like a single track conference. I
yeah.
think I think that's the best. It's everyone's got the same breaks, and
Hmm.
I think also, like, especially if you have a lot of content, it really makes sure most all of the content is good, and you don't
Yeah.
have, I don't know about y'all, but I've been on a lot of talk selection things, and sometimes you're just like, I don't know, there's a slot over here, so let's put in a talk about like how to like make better slides, or
Yeah.
something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
they can be helpful if you have a big conference to have sort of like career and sort of like self development talks, but it's sometimes also nice just to do the nerd stuff
Yeah.
straight through. Yeah. Well, let's start with first of all, I think what's always most interesting is, as you were saying, is kind of like what the future plans are, and getting Cloud Foundry into the Kubernetes world. But like, what was the like give us a sense of like the usage of Cloud Foundry, like who's using it nowadays, like if as you were saying, people like your former self, you're still your same self, but in your former
Hmm.
role,
Yeah.
showing up as a user or a customer, like what are people doing with it nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the use cases are still the same as before. So, Cloud Foundry still is, it's like, kind of niche or like really awesome use cases for kind of large enterprises or large companies that have really large development shops to really kind of give our customers and people in the community this really kind of very curated and opinionated stack to just focus on delivering business value. So a lot of the companies and customers that have been working on this for the past almost, I think it's decade now, have still been kind of, I guess I used to say in my previous job here, we're just over here running the business and making all the money for everyone. So that is very still true today. There was a talk with some of the SAP folks where they were going into some of the scale where they run Cloud Foundry, worldwide, and some of the scale of those foundations they were talking about was it was just kind of absurd how large they were. I took some screenshots from one of my tweets, so I'm gonna try to see if I can find those really quick. But
so what does SAP do with it? I remember they were part of the initial big Sprout Cloud Foundry community. What have they been up to these years?
So I mean, they're still very active in the community, and they a partner or they have a lot of developers committing code to Cloud Foundry itself and developing that, and they use it as I think a part of their services, like service offerings that they run. They use Cloud Foundry to run business applications for their customers. I don't know the exact application names and things of that nature, but they use Cloud Foundry to run their custom applications that then they serve to their customers.
Well, it could be anything from annual benefit selection to reordering ball bearings that were shipped to Rotterdam instead of Sweden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's some of these numbers too for some they were measuring some of their app runtime. So a lot of the Cloud Foundry runtime is measured in memory that is allocated to the container scheduler, which is Diego. So they had I think recorded 317 terabytes of RAM allocated, that's a lot of RAM. So that's a lot of containers running. So we usually talk about terabytes in terms of spinning disk or cold storage, but DRAM, that's usually pretty expensive. I think at one point it was $10,000 a terabyte or something of that nature. So to have that have that much memory allocated to some of these deployments is pretty significant.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of Minecraft servers.
Yeah, a lot. maybe all the Minecraft servers in the world. I don't know.
That might even allow Mac users to run Slack and other things at the same time.
That's now.
Wishful thinking.
And Nick, was this the first time that there'd been a conference of this type since the whole sort of merger with the CNCF and that style of managing the project?
Yeah, I mean, so this is the first kind of event since COVID happened. I think there might have been a virtual event last year as well.
Right.
I wasn't quite sure, but I guess one thing too to key out is, so it was in person, but it was also virtual. So that the single track made it really, I think, easy for the virtual folks online as well, because it was like a Zoom room where
brilliant.
Yeah, the presenters would come up and kind of attach. They had some kind of like server type thing that I think was doing some kind of AV streaming back to Zoom or something. But they'd hook up to that device, and then they'd present in the room, and they'd be presenting online. And then we had Chris and Ram from the Cloud Foundry Foundation kind of monitoring that, and if there are virtual questions coming in, we can kind of interject that to the speaker, or like in-person questions, obviously people raise their hand and that type of thing. So that seemed to work out pretty well too, like kind of a good balance of physical and virtual presence. I guess we call it hybrid these days. I don't know. But yeah.
I gave a talk at a hybrid conference on Friday, and I was the hybrid. I don't know. I was presenting remotely, and the feed that I got was from the back of the room, so you could see people, but then you could also see my screen, and they had positioned my head as like a third of the screen with my slides behind me, and so it's kind of odd to see my big head there, but it did make it seem a little more real as a speaker. That was enjoyable. So what is the? Let's start with the thing I think over recent years and at the moment that it's of most interest, and that is, so what's up? What's the state of getting Cloud Foundry in to have a foot in the Kubernetes world? What's going on there?
Yeah, so the latest iteration there is called Cloud Foundry Karifi. And that's the rebranded, or like the latest name of the previous iteration of that work, which was called Cloud Foundry on Kubernetes. And then, previous efforts before that were attempted as well, and, with different kind of mechanisms. But the latest work, which is Karifi, is really targeting recreating, those kind of cloud native Cloud Foundry interfaces natively within Kubernetes using things like custom resource definitions instead of trying to shim some of the Cloud Foundry components like in a container and just run it in Kubernetes. That was kind of not necessarily the best architectural decision, or was going to have some significant scale limitations. So the team has been working for at least the past year, probably longer as well, to kind of revamp all that and kind of give you that CF push on Kubernetes, but natively, without trying to shim things in or shove things into containers that really shouldn't be, that type of thing. So that was a big thread and a big theme for the day. There is a demo by Dr. Dave Walter and Andrew Ritrock, who kind of gave an overall introduction to Karifi, and they actually showed installing Karifi locally on a Kubernetes cluster, and then pushing an application and using that Cloud Foundry user-provided service binding it to a database, so that kind of high level basic Cloud Foundry experience that we all know and love, and it's super simple to get started, recreated within on Kubernetes and in that landscape.
So something I've been wondering recently, when I'm not trying to figure out why the kids can't like get their shoes on time to get out the door in the morning, or other real life things like that, is so like when people talk about like having Cloud Foundry run on Kubernetes, and you were kind of touching on this, do they like it seems to me there's two possible things that could mean. One would be like, let's take the Cloud Foundry code and run it on Kubernetes, right? And obviously it's not that simple, but you would have the whole system of doing things. And I guess you would swap out the container management. I mean, it gets a little complicated here because basically Cloud Foundry has its own Kubernetes built into it. But
right.
I guess you would swap it out in the same way that like if you had a car and you were like, I want a different type of engine. I'm tired of these like measuring bolts and nuts and inches. I'd like to measure them in centimeters. So you want to swap your engine out or something, which is totally an equivalency between those two other systems, as far as I understand it. But then it also seems like something you're saying is like you could do the I don't think there's a word for this in systems, but you could do like duck typing, where it's like, well, I guess this would be the Cloud Foundry Turing test. You could be like, as far as I know how I use it, it's exactly like using Cloud Foundry. I type in the stuff, whether I'm an operations person or a developer, and it does all the things I would expect. And what's up with the Cloud Foundry community as far as like those two or a third or a fourth option that they're looking at to kind of like bring these things together?
Right. So if we look at the different personas of the developer using Cloud Foundry or like the operator managing Cloud Foundry, right? So from a developer's point of view, Karifi aims to really kind of, make it, I guess, the same or really hard to tell the difference. So their existing applications, their existing pipelines and workflows don't really have to change that whole lot. They'll have to target a new API endpoint because it's running in a different location, but that's really all they'll potentially really have to change. So that's kind of the whole having that CF API compatibility from the CF CLI and the API layer. So having that not really change, or really having it's really having Karifi adhere to and emulate all those existing interfaces. That's from the developer point of view, not really having to change a whole lot. Now from the operator's point of view, you're going to have this concept of really classic Cloud Foundry, which is based on Bosch and that, Diego and all these different, kind of components that, were created and maintained outside of the Kubernetes ecosystem. And then with Karifi, you really land on an existing Kubernetes deployment, and then that you can make use of all the different kind of components within the CNCF.
Right.
And obviously too, from an operator perspective, not necessarily learning how to use Bosch and all of that. You could just, if you already know Kubernetes, you're kind of already in that zone type, so to speak. So, they're using Helm to install Karifi and kind of wire that up into existing Kubernetes clusters with some other prerequisites from the kind of CNCF type landscape. So that's kind of like the two different personas and delineation, where the developer experience is trying to not really be changed whatsoever or very little change. But then from the operator persona, there's obviously going to be some significant change.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because for a developer, well, I guess for a developer, you could just have some translation layer that's like, I don't remember my Cloud Foundry very well, but like in Cloud Foundry, the way that you define routes, which are like the way two parts talk with each other, or your ingress and egress, which is always a fun words to say. And so I forget what the word you use for that in Kubernetes is, but you would just have some translation thing that when a developer like does, CF make me a route that has this name that connects to my application, you would just translate that to whatever the Kubernetes words are and the structure, and it would do it for you. And then I guess the only like dissonance you would have from that is if the developer then went to some like management or monitoring or whatever you want to call it, observability tool, and like the vocabulary was kind of different, and they would have to translate in their mind like what was going on there. But whatever, you would assume that would be part of what was delivered as well, or it would be a nice thing to deliver. So the like developer thing is pretty easy because it's just like translating stuff around. But then I guess where it gets difficult is from the operations side. If you wanted to customize anything or introduce anything in Cloud Foundry, you do that with Bosh, and you don't in Kubernetes. So you would have to, if you wanted to customize things on your Kubernetes side, you would, whether you're bringing new types of, something to handle terabytes of whatever, or your, data stores, or various types of, to use the Cloud Foundry word, backing services for it. Like a lot of that stuff comes down to like, if it's not out of the box, you've got to use, Bosh and other stuff to add that in there, which as the operations person, you wouldn't do that. You do it as a Kubernetes thing. And then again, they would also have the thing of whatever vocabulary they use, you'd have to map between the two different domains. I don't know. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. So Karifi is doing that mapping for the developers and somewhat for the operators as well, where these custom resource definitions that are getting defined, they're called CF app or CF route or CF domain. So these kind of CF command and API constructs are getting represented that as objects in Kubernetes that you can interact with, like with kubectl. Right. Like, so you can do like kubectl get CF app, and that shows you your Cloud Foundry apps have been deployed. But then you can take that a step further and interact with them as as a pod. So like you can do like your kubectl get pod. So you can take it even further if you want to. But so it's kind of multiple layers that you want to interact with, but the developer will still probably use the CF CLI for the most part.
Yeah,
and maybe break out to the Kubernetes kubectl or kubectl, however you want to say it, if they need to, that type of thing. And from that route perspective that you were mentioning, so like you CF map route, you get a route from classic Cloud Foundry, you get that Go router, setting up that route for you, and TLS termination and all that fun stuff. Well, that's taken care of with a project called Contour, which is an ingress controller in Kubernetes, and using some other things like Cert Manager and things to manage certificates. So that's kind of like mirroring the classic Cloud Foundry Go router experience to the Kubernetes world, using ingress controllers and Kubernetes services and that type of thing. And that CF route is also a custom resource definition that you can interact with as well on the kubectl side of the house.
It sounds better than sort of some of the past attempts then, because some of those kind of fell down in between the cracks, didn't they? Sort of, developer would get so far and then have to rely on kubectl. Same for, if you were used to certain constructs like you were saying there, such as roots or whatever, you would have to figure out which components in the Kubernetes world you needed to use in order to do that. So the workflow would be more difficult. It sounds like what's happening here is that the workflows that CF users are already familiar with are becoming sort of first tier supported features in Karifi, whereas before it was a little bit more messy. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty fair statement for sure. And and definitely too from an operational perspective as well. That's very much true as well.
So what was the sort of reaction to it? How were people, were folks being introduced to it for the first time, or is it something that they're already comfortable with and that they're looking for, maturity on? What's the sort of feel around it?
So I think there's a lot of excitement around it. I think, obviously the engineers who've been working on it we're very familiar with it, but there's a lot of folks who hadn't seen it ever. So this is their first time being exposed to it. So they, folks are pretty excited about it. And, there's a lot of questions and, doing, they did a really in-depth live demo. So like, those like people were excited about that, seeing everything that was going on. So that was, that's very, I think it was, probably one of the most exciting in terms of net new technology sessions that were, talked about. So people were really, I think, reacting pretty well to it. I'm obviously real, excited about it as well, because I think it gives a lot of options and it really expands the existing ecosystem more going forward. So, and I guess one thing too I want to also note is that all the work, the Cloud Foundry Karifi work from the VMware Tanzu side of the house, we just released the Application Service Adapter 1.0, which is based on Cloud Foundry Karifi and ties into our VMware Tanzu application platform. So that released last week. So that's kind of like our first commercialization of Cloud Foundry Karifi as well. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that as well, or keep your eyes out for that. But there's a blog and some I did a demo on kind of the whole life cycle as well that you can go check out and see the application service adapter, or really Cloud Foundry Karifi in action as well from the VMware Tanzu side of the house.
Hey Michael, I think you might be on mute there.
I noticed that you had some videos there, and I wanted to say I really like the aesthetic you were choosing there, kind of like maybe early '90s mall video arcade.
Yeah,
I think it was looking pretty good. Where you could go to the mall. Did you all have this over there? In your neck of the woods, Ben, where you could go to the mall and they had a recording studio, and you and your friends could record yourself singing the hits of the day.
I don't know if I noticed that in my hometown, but maybe my hometown wasn't bang up to date in the 80s, 90s. But
I feel at the time you could play video games and you could also go record yourself. Go to the bookstore, maybe the skate rink, food court.
Yeah,
real Stranger Things stuff.
Yeah,
video games for sure. Yeah, I mean our version of Las Vegas is Blackpool, which was very close to where I grew up. So I would, in the summertime, go down to Blackpool and play all the arcades all the way along the seafront, all the way down to the bottom and then back again to where the train station was. So many a misspent hour in various arcades as a youngster. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I like the video, Nick. I like the aesthetic you've gone for there. I'm surprised you didn't do yourself a some sort of max headroom though, just to finish it all off.
Well, I'm still learning.
There's
my
still
first
time.
Yes, yeah.
You just need some papier-mâché, surely.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah,
and some kids.
Well, so another thing you mentioned is build pack stuff, which I think to ask my general high level question in this area, it seems like it seems like there's a lot that build packs and cloud native build packs have to offer everyone, regardless of what you do with Cloud Foundry. And I feel like in the Kubernetes world, like they have, I always forget because Knative keeps bundling and unbundling. But at some point, and maybe still, build packs were part of Knative or not. But anyways, it seems like a good general way to package up and deploy your stuff, kind of in a DevOpsy sort of way. That's a bunch of gobbledygook words. Yes. But what's up with the world of build packs at the moment in Cloud Foundry?
Yes, sure. So from a build pack perspective, a new thing that was was discussed was the Paketo build pack project, which is an implementation of cloud native build packs. So when we talk about build packs, we have build packs v2, which is essentially the the Cloud Foundry classic, what we know today in Cloud Foundry build packs, and then the cloud, the V3 build packs are really the cloud native build packs, and the Paketo is an implementation of those build packs. So Karifi was using the Paketo build packs as well. We use some of those build packs in what we call Tanzu Build Service, which is bundled in Tanzu Application Platform. But yes, the concept of build packs could be used. I mean, really, like everyone, in my opinion, should be using build packs because it's this way to get best practice industry standard for your runtimes, and having people fiddle around with containers and build them kind of on the fly. Like why would you do that when something could just do it for you, right? And
I know,
then
it's crazy, isn't it?
yeah. And then also
It's like-
having all the security layers taken for you as well, just out of the gate, like not having to worry about any of that. I mean, I don't know. Like if I was, still writing code, I would not want to be like worrying about if my Docker container is secure, that type of thing.
If you went up to a team and said, "Would you like 1,000 hours of DevOps for free?" they would probably say yes.
Yeah.
And yet, surprisingly, when you say you can use a build pack, folks kind of need convincing, and it's like, well, there's thousands of hours of really good research and development gone into these things. Just use them, for goodness sake. They're built into Spring now. You use Spring or Maven, for example.
Right,
you can just do build-image. It will build you an image. It's going to use the same build packs that you're talking about there, right? So, it is a source of irritation.
I think it's too late now. I think they might have closed this, but that maybe next year at FOSDEM, we should propose one of those day-long tracks that's just about like builds. You could have build packs as one thing, and building stuff by hand is another thing. I think Maven's still around, right? Like you could, like, all these things that are basically like, how do we build stuff? Not like CI/CD pipelines, and not like runtime environments, just strictly like we're just building stuff. And that there must be a lot going on in the open source world of doing that.
We should have a race. We should have like 2 teams or something, maybe 5 different workloads in different languages, and just say, okay, you've got a day to build these into.
That would be fun. And maybe we could also, the other competition could be, so if you have 5 or 6 build systems, the competition is, can you build them all? Like how can you build the build systems and see what happens? And that's just funny, I guess, and recursive, because it would be funny if building the builder was difficult, which it often is, it seems. Well, that was a distraction from build pack stuff.
But yeah, if you just use build packs, people,
Yes.
come on, it's 2022. Stop reinventing the wheel. Just use the build packs.
Yeah, use the build packs in your life. We'll be happy, and you can sleep more and not have to worry about security and that type of thing. Or worry less. Let's just say about security. Yeah. So what else do we want to talk about here? So we talked about Karifi and Paketo, and those are kind of the 2 really new things, like the new kind of exciting projects going on behind the scenes, I guess.
Well, what was like the future looking thing? Was there some roadmap talk? You get the community people together. What's kind of the plans for the next 6 and then like 12 months? What's people rumbling on about?
I don't know if there was like a full-on roadmap talk per se, but I mean, obviously continuing development within Karifi and Paketo are kind of going forward for the future. And then also, just continuing to ship, the classic Cloud Foundry experience as well is a big theme. There's a lot of different talks about different subcomponents of that ecosystem going forward. And, there's talk about, kind of the future of logging and metrics, how we're going to, what's the current state, and, how will it progress during, going forward. There's some app runtime talk as well. So, I mean, I can't cover every video and every topic in this, but all of these videos now are out. If you go to the Cloud Foundry YouTube channel, and you can see like the full talk. So definitely check those out as well. Let's see if we can key up. There's a very interesting talk by David Stevenson, one of our kind of tech leads here at VMware, but he was he did a lot of work about kind of measuring the cost to run Cloud Foundry across the 3 different hyperscalers, and kind of revamping some work to look at all the different VM instance sizing, because if you've ever used these the 3 main cloud providers, the VM sizing is kind of strange and obscure, and the naming doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and some of the pricing is also very strange. And as new generations of VM types roll out, they're typically cheaper than the old types of VM generations, and you get locked in, and it's like it's kind of almost a thing you need to decode to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes. But he did a lot of work in investigating those, and his talk was entitled "How We Brought Down the Cost of a New Deployment Down 50%." So I think that's definitely a key for folks running Cloud Foundry on a big hyperscaler of choice to go check out. But it was all about measuring the different kind of VM types within each hyperscaler, and optimizing each Cloud Foundry component for potentially a new resource type, and something to definitely check out there if you're got have Cloud Foundry deployments running out on a hyperscaler.
Well, 50% is a lot more than 0%, or negative 50%.
Yes.
I guess in this case that would be positive 50%, because you're really getting negative 50%. But
your wallet's saving every month for sure.
That's right. Well, I'll have to put a link in the show notes at tanzutalk.com to the to video list, as you're saying. The CNCF was very quick to upload everything, which was just peachy and fine. Is there any other, like as the last thing, how are the snacks? Was the food good? How would you rate that? Did they have the mid-morning snack, and then usually in the afternoon you have 2 snacks? And there's always a debate: are we going to put like sweet stuff out there, or are we going to put healthy stuff? And then you end up having both. And you got some fruit, apples, things like that. Was there any savory things? Maybe a hummus spread on some sort of like stiff brown cracker?
There's definitely a wide variety of snacks, and they were a plenty. I think for breakfast I got kind of a strawberry. I tried to eat healthy for breakfast. It was a
good job.
A strawberry oatmeal type mixture. Oh, yeah. It was actually pretty good. But,
was it served in a little mason jar that you popped open?
It was all plastic, but sure. I don't know.
Okay,
not
good.
quite a mason jar, but you had a little bit of a granola that you kind of like popped in and mixed it up, type situation.
Right. Yeah.
So that was pretty good. And then the lunch was in the main hall, so to speak. And I would think that definitely about KubeCon in Detroit, the conference food was pretty on point. They had a lot of different offerings and a lot of I guess maybe comfort food type things as well. But
yes.
There's no shortage of food there for sure. And obviously Detroit style pizza was definitely a must, and I think Buddy's Pizza I ate, and it was very good. So
what is Detroit style pizza? Is it different from regular pizza? I don't get it.
Yes. Yeah. So you start talking about it's Detroit style pizza versus Chicago style pizza, but Detroit style pizza is a very kind of a square deep dish with kind of the corners, kind of with crusted cheese type thing. It's like a soft deep dish, but it's not like a Chicago style, which is literally like a pie and like very heavy type thing. But
I see. So you make it square.
Yes, it's square. And so, and I guess maybe if you've ever had Little Caesars, it's not quite Little Caesars, but Little Caesars, I didn't know this is headquartered in Detroit, and they have a square style pizza as well. It's not like their main style, but
I see. That's what they had when I was a kid, in those, wishing I had money to go record myself singing the hits of today. At the arcade.
Yeah.
Lots of Little Caesars. That was some cheap pizza, like $3 for a gigantic sheet of pizza.
Yeah.
And it tasted like that too.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Although I have to say that I have fond memories of that flavor. It's kind of like, every expat loves Kraft macaroni and cheese. And what I've come to recently with this is it's kind of like also stovetop stuffing. You're like the The flaw in not liking Kraft macaroni cheese or stovetop stuffing is there is no comparison. It's its own food item. So you have to appreciate it on its own. There's no like, you're not like, oh, but what if you made a bechamel with your own macaroni and cheese, fresh from the farmer's market? And you're like, no, that's not what I'm making. That's not what this is. This is a different thing.
Yeah.
And
This
I
is
think
eliteness.
yes, I think Little Caesars Pizza and Domino's, all those pizzas are also their own thing. They're definitely not the kind of stuff you get in Rome, which is its own thing, much separate than anything we would have.
And can we revisit very briefly this 1980s arcade game playing persona? What was the beard like back then, and the hair? Question to all. So I'll start off. Mine, I wouldn't have had a beard, absolutely not. But I did have like really short, spiky hair, I reckon, back then.
Oh, yeah.
So please go ahead.
I think my hair was always a mess. I was not really into taking care of myself, I think.
And no beard, I guess.
No. That didn't happen until I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14. So it took a while.
Oh, like this, like it is now.
Something like that.
I must have been off-putting for so many people.
Yeah.
What about
14,
yourself, Nick?
full beard. No, hair. I don't know, hair back then. That was a little, I was born in the 80s, but it was late 80s, so I was
It
not.
was a mullet, wasn't it? It was a mullet, and you don't want to tell us.
No,
It was a
well,
mullet.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't had hair in a while, so you could tell
Is
by
it-
the shine off my lights, right? But
Business at the front, party at the back. Was that it? Was
No.
that it?
I don't think I've ever had a mullet, but no, I think I was born, I guess, with somewhat of a mohawk, I guess, a little bit of hair on the top, but
Oh.
that's strange. I don't have to go digging through a baby picture to find it or whatever, but yeah.
All right. Well, there's an image, dear listeners, that you'll never be able to erase from your
Yes.
mind what we might have all looked like.
Maybe we can each send a picture of ourselves at the arcade, and I'll use that for the album art, the cover art for this episode.
I mean, I'm old enough that they're not digital, right?
You have to, yeah. Well, me too. You'd have to scan them in. Well, okay. So that was a good. That's good. I feel nice and informed. That was. I appreciate you coming on here to give us a little overview of what's going on there, and a little overview of the food. I always love a yogurt with a granola mezzanine. That's always nice. Make something on your own there. And as always, if someone wanted to, if they wanted to tell you about their hairstyles when they were a kid, Nick, where would you point them at? Where could they go?
You can always hit me up on Twitter. I guess we'll see how long.
Is that still going?
I don't
Twitter's
know.
still alive?
It's
I don't
kind
know.
of like hit me up on Twitter. We'll see if it's still running in a week. I don't know.
Looks like a tire fire at the minute.
Yeah. But you can also find me on LinkedIn as well. I guess we can put some links in there. I am trying this whole Mastodon thing out as well. I guess we could try that too. But
As is Michael. You're trying a bit of Mastodon too, aren't you?
Well, I learned my lesson back before I had a beard that when there's a new social site on, you got to go squat on it and try hard, just in case things happen. Maybe that's what. So there's someone out in the Spring community written a Mastodon server yet? I don't even know what that means, but that seems like something that should happen.
If it has been, you can bet it's running on Cloud Foundry.
yeah.
Oh, very good. Well, and with that, if you want to get the show notes for this episode, I'll try to put in links to the Cloud Foundry Day stuff, and if we can find any pictures of ourselves at arcades or not. But you can go to tanzutalk.com and just find this episode. Probably unless you're listening to the entire back catalog sometime in the future, it'll be right there at the top. So you don't have to worry about it when you go to tanzutalk.com and find it. And it's always great if you enjoy this, or even if you don't enjoy it, to subscribe to it. And what I always recommend is anytime you encounter some device that is able to download podcasts, whether it's your children's, your enemies, whoever delivered your mail, maybe you sent the butcher off to get you a good cut of steak, or you want some change for an Xbox that you're about to wrap some towels around, grab their device and point it at their face as they walk off. And subscribe into this podcast 2 to 5 times and give them a little treat that they'll enjoy. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right, I'll end our broadcast here. That was fun.